Welcome to this episode of the Cold Dead Hands podcast with your hosts, Dr. Benjamin Dowd-Arrow and resident firebrand Brett Cross. Sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy as they bring you the stories told from the cold dead hands.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Stories from the Cold Dead Hands, a radio show where we empower those who are lost to gun violence in this country by lifting up their voices. Too often, the media focuses on the people who perpetrate these harmful and heinous acts, and we often only think of the victims as numbers or as indiscriminate masses. I'm Dr. Benjamin Dowd-Arrow. I'm one of your hosts. I am a medical sociologist and one of the top gun scholars in my field. I have published on everything from the effects that guns have on our health and well-being to the social determinants of gun ownership and gun policy support. So why do people own guns and why do people support certain policies? My co-host tonight is Brett Cross.
I'm Brett Cross. I lost my son Uzziah in the Robb Elementary shooting in May of 22. Since then, I have dedicated my life to making sure that his legacy remains and that he is known the world over, as well as changing firearm laws so that nobody else becomes a victim like my son was.
And our guest tonight is Dion Green. Dion, why don't you take a second, introduce yourself, and talk about why you're here.
Yes, thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Brett, for having me on this platform. My name is Dion Green. I'm the CEO and founder of the FUDGE Foundation. But what brought me here tonight is also I'm a survivor and a victim of the 2019 mass shooting that happened here in Dayton, Ohio, that claimed 9 lives. And one of those lives was my father, Derrick Fudge, who was shot and killed beside me that night. And ever since then, like Brett, I took that pain and created purpose out of that. And I've been advocating locally and nationally all over the country when it comes to support for survivors and just being a voice in places and spaces that our loved ones can't show up for. So guess what? We show up for them and for many others because, you know, at the end of the day, yes, we lost our loved one, but the mission is bigger than us now.
Yeah. So
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, and you know, and that's something that like is a common theme, like when we talk about like how it's bigger than any one of us. And you know, Brett, you know, you've commented often that you wish you'd been more involved before the events.
Absolutely.
You know, it is important to highlight that this is bigger than all of us. So Dion, why don't you start us off and just kind of talk about your dad, yourself, your relationship, and we'll just kind of walk through everything about him and you, you know, and eventually we'll get to what happened.
Yeah, because this is the first time. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. This is the first time that we've had someone on here that was both a victim and survivor, you know, who was there and lost a loved one. So it's different for those that continuously listen into us. This is a first for us because we've never had someone that has experienced both like you have.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Brett. Yeah, so, you know, my dad, Derrick Fudge, was a very, very stern, mean man growing up as a child. You know, first of all, he's a Steelers fan.
Oh, no.
I don't know how, but that's who he is. But, you know, not growing up.
Derrick, you're starting off with a strike against him.
You know, growing up, you know, my father, he didn't have the easiest life, right? He battled some things in his life, but one thing that my father would always do was give his shirt off his back to the next person. He was very loving person and just very kind, but growing up, he was very stern. But as I got older, man, my father wasn't nothing but a big old kid. You know, sometimes he was worse than my niece and nephews because he continued to play with them. But yeah, just growing up with him, man, like I said, he had a rough background. So a lot of years out of my life, he was incarcerated. I'm my dad's only child as well, you know, so, you know, but he always been there. And the things that me and my dad would do is if we don't talk for months, we'll go fishing for days. And that's our bonding as fish. So we would fish and drink our Jack Daniels. And that's what we would do, is drink our Jack Daniels and fish. And as I got older, the conversation just became funny and funnier, because now I'm a man, and, you know, all that mean stuff, because my dad was mean. And he'd beat somebody up in a heartbeat, but I was just little.
Well, I think that's indicative of that generation, right?
Right.
Like that generation was just me.
You know, but as I got older, man, he was, like I said, he was nothing but a kid. Like, I own a lot of properties here in Ohio, and, you know, my father, he's a jack of all trades. So he knows how to do everything. He can put some drywall in, or he can give you a tune-up, you know, but that's just what he did. I don't got those skills. You know, I mess around in my property, but I'm not good as him. But, you know, he was my painter in my properties. He did a lot of my things. And, you know, when that situation happened, I almost sold my properties because one of my tenants moved out and it was time to paint. And it was an emotional breakdown because I didn't know where to turn to. But I took that grief, and I decided to, you know what? I'm gonna paint this house. And while I painted, I cuss him out the whole time. So I'm like, look at you, you got me painting this house. Because I would paint, but I do the big stuff. Like, I just do the walls, like just the row. He do all the edging and cutting the stuff that takes all damn day. But yeah, man, that was one of my first bad breakdowns.
That's our clip, by the way.
Okay.
That's our clip. So I clip these and put it onto like TikTok or stuff to like get people to watch. And that, like, especially with the way that you articulated it with the demonstration of like, I paint all damn day. That was hilarious. That is a great clip.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it was. Like, you know, at first, like, I didn't know what to do, because I'm like, damn, who do I call? But instead of calling somebody, I decided to do it. And so that's my bonding time with him, you know. So when I'm painting my house, I'm talking to him, but I'm also cussing him out at the same time, because I'm like, you're supposed to be here with me doing this, you know. But you know, I just try to take those triggers and try to turn them into something positive to create, you know, that don't put me in a bad space, because as Brett knows, you know, certain things trigger us very, very quick. And a lot of people don't know that, you know, sometimes we might be smiling, but deep down inside, we really hurt, you know. And that's one thing that I tell people. Like, they always say, Dion, you should be doing better. You're going on 5 years. You only get one of each. And that pain is there for a lifetime. You know, some days I just try to put a smile on so you don't feel down and out. But as soon as I go to that car, I might get to crying and doing all of that.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, man, my father was cool. What really hurts me the most, though, is out of all the hiccups that he had in his life, about the shooting, what makes me upset so much, that he took my dad from me, because my father just really started realizing what life was really about.
Yeah.
Staying out of trouble, just enjoying your family, being around those that love you. And, you know,
well, speaking of
I'm
like
happy.
enjoying your family, you said that you bonded through fishing, right? Like, I live in Florida currently. I grew up in Florida and Georgia. I grew up on the water, right? Like, freshwater fishing, something I did. Probably completely different than the way you fish in Ohio, but, like, you know, it's something I did. So you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you would say you wouldn't for days, but you'd fished.
So yeah, because that's still a challenge that I'm trying to get over with. So I'm a very avid fisher. So I'm gonna start from the end, and I'm gonna go back to the beginning. So I haven't been fishing since my father passed. And the reason why is I don't ever put the hook on my pole. My father always done that. So when I get snagged and it breaks, guess who pole I take? I take his. So I know that is really going to be one of the hardest things for me, because when I get caught on something and it breaks, do I put the hook on it, or do I throw the pole in the water? You know, because I know that I don't never put the hooks on. And, you know, I got people that say, Dion, I put the hooks on for you. You know, I'm just don't know if I'm ready for it yet. But, you know, now to the beginning, yeah, we'll go fishing for 3 days straight, 4 days straight. Car full of beef jerkies, tadpoles everywhere, worms, you know, and I ain't catching nothing. He's catching them all. But, you know, I'm going to sit there and say that I'm catching them. when I'm telling people. But yeah, man, that was our time that we just sat and bond and just really got to experience who each other was as a man on a personal level, and just have conversation that I didn't think I can have with my father, and there were some good times. There's a lot of funny times, but what the things I would give to have those moments back.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell people, man, create memories, because one thing that nobody can't take from you. I don't care if they put you in a room and it's dark and you never come back out. They can't take the memory from you. So always try to create those memories of your loved ones and your friends.
Absolutely. And I can relate kind of. I lost my dad in 2018, I believe. It wasn't gun violence. He wrecked, but there was something that you said earlier that really got me. And it was like, when you were like, who do I call to do this? Because even as grown men, we need our dads, so like there's been times where I've been, trying to do something for my daughter's car, right? And my dad was the mechanic, the jack of all trades, just like yours. And I'll go and, go to pick up my phone, and I'm like, he's not going to answer, and then so I feel you when it's like, then I start cussing him out, put on one of his favorite songs, and I'm like, you fucking left me. Why? Like it was his choice or something, but yeah, you said it right. Like you only have one of each, right? So, when you lose one, especially when you're young, because if you're 60 and you lose your father, that's to be expected,
you got to live a full life with each other.
Yeah, I lost my dad. I believe I was 27 or 28. My dad passed when he was like 48, something like that. I'd have to do the numbers.
That's so young.
Yeah, so like that's only like 14 years away from where I'm at now, right? And it's still pretty young, but no, you hit the nail on the head perfectly with that one, because yeah, like I knew exactly what you meant when you're like, I'm just cussing them out. I'm sitting there trying to fix something on my daughter's car, busting my knuckles up, and I'm like, you bastard, you left.
Knowing that they come in there and just get it done real quick and be out the way.
Yeah, no matter if my dad, he lived like 5 hours away from me, I would have been able to call him up and be like, hey, can you come help me? And he would have taken off and come and help. Now I'm like, now I got to figure this shit out.
And so I try to do that, because my dad, every year, like around Christmas, my dad rings the bell for Salvation Army. So the first year when that happened, I stood in place for him. And when I say I don't know how he done that, that shit was hard as hell, standing up all day in the cold, ringing the bell, but it was in honor of him, and I stood in place for him. But I didn't realize, like, damn.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you did
easy.
that. Yeah, I don't know how you did that, because like you said, with fishing and everything, like me and Uzi, we would play Fortnite together. It's been, it's going on 3 years, and I have yet to pick up that controller and play Fortnite again. And I know that it's going to be fucking hard when I do. So I understand completely when you're like, do I just throw the pole in the water? Or what do I do? Because it's hard enough to get up I don't want to say courage, but to go up there and do that, because that was something that y'all did together, and now you're doing it solo. So it's terrifying.
It's like holidays. I don't play Bill Wiz or Spades no more, because guess who my partner was? He was the best cheating partner ever. That's probably why I'm so good at cheating when it comes to card games. But I haven't played cards since holidays. Like we usually do family stuff, and I just haven't been engaged. And I hope in time that it changes. I turned into the Grinch with Christmas and all of that, but I had to realize, so I'm my dad's only child, and I only got one child. So I had to be like, I had to suck it up for myself. Like, you can't take Christmas away from yourself, because it's going to affect your household. Yeah. Much as I'm not into it like I used to be, I have to do it for her.
Absolutely. Same. The holidays are rough, and the only reason why we do anything is because of my other children, you know. But even my kids, they're just like, it's not the same. Like even if we did everything exactly like we did with Uzi, it's not the same, you know. So yeah, like Thanksgiving, we just watched movies. Like it wasn't.
I didn't do nothing. Everybody was saying, "Are you out?" And I would say, "Yep." But I was sitting in my pajamas watching the Lioness and football. Just enjoying my space. Isolation. I always say isolation is trauma's girlfriend, and it kicks in a lot. I don't want to be around people. I get to see families loving their loved ones. Not that I'm jealous, but there's a missing part in my life right now. And I'm not saying, and I hope that I can come around to be able to get back to what I was, not fully, but to be back involved and engaged with the family. But it takes time, and I'm all right with time. I'm not going to rush something that's not ready to be rushed.
Well, and that's a good kind of segue too. I mean, we know that these events change people, right? And like Brett said, we have only had people who have lost somebody. You've lost somebody, but you also were there. Who were you before this event?
So, before this event, just always been a person that been to myself. As I was going down the same rabbit hole, I got in trouble at a young age. Always been in school, but I got in trouble at a young age that cost me 8 years in prison. So, but when I came home, my daughter was about 2 months. She was my child's mother was 2 months pregnant before I got locked up. So when I came home, I said I can't keep making those mistakes because it's not about me no more. I was being selfish, and that's how I mentor my kids now. That being young and being selfish, not thinking what your choices and the impact that it has on people around you. But man, I just always been a person of entrepreneurship. Just owning businesses, owning properties, restaurants, and just really making a way, staying out of people's way. My life was fine the way it was. I came home, finished up my other degree, and was just enjoying my family, being the father that I was supposed to be because I was gone for those 8 years. So now it was time to be present, and I wasn't going to put myself in that predicament again. So I came home. I always did right. I just made mistakes, and I paid for it. But sometimes I think that those mistakes kind of prepared me for what I went through. Being in that place right there, it don't teach you isolation, but it teaches you to be to yourself. You know, and I lost a lot of loved ones in there and friends. So it didn't put a full thing around my heart, but it made my heart a little barricaded where it helped me get through this part.
Toughened
And
it up a little bit.
yeah, and so it's just it's it was rough. I tell my kids I don't wish prison upon none of them, because I mentor a lot of kids across the country when it comes to violence centered in the system. But, I tell them that it probably saved my life because if I didn't go there, where would my mom be visiting? Her grave. And as I tell my kids that I work with, I don't wish prison on some of y'all, but that might be the best place for some of y'all because your mothers and fathers and the things y'all doing out here, at least they know where y'all at and not where they gonna go visit and leave a flower at.
Yeah.
So, I when I speak to these kids, I speak the truth because it's real out here. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not reading from a book. I lived this life 8 years straight. I know what it looks like. And if they want to continue going down that rabbit hole with violence and guns, well, let me paint the picture and let me show you what it's really gonna look like. And I tell them if you don't like being told what to do on the outs, you're never gonna survive an inside because hey, get off that phone. Hey, time to get in that shower. Hey, you ain't seeing your loved ones for 2 weeks. So I'm gonna give you the game plan. If you want to go there, this is what it looks like, and the choice is yours. Just trying to be real intentional with them and just hoping that they don't go down that path and give themselves a chance. Because guns are just ending up in too many people's hands and too many families are just suffering,
Mm-hmm.
and
So
it needs to stop.
right, yeah. Were you were you mentoring before this incident happened, or did that like really push you?
That pushed me after the shooting, you know, just getting the kids, seeing the kids, but also just seeing how it just was just skyrocketing. But you know, other than that, man, just school and family, school, family, and just taking care of my business, my properties and stuff like that. Like I said, I ain't bother nobody. My life was great. All I did was canoe, and that's how that night started. Because what people don't understand is the shooting here happened August 4th, 2019. But if you get online and look it up, Dayton, Ohio got hit with 20 tornadoes of May 31st of 2019. I just happened to be in the worst part where it took my house while I was in the house. So May, I lost my house, and the whole neighborhood and the whole city lost their house because we had 20 tornadoes. And then August 4th was the shooting. And what I do for myself to decompress and to reset is I love canoeing. So my father lived about 30 minutes away, so I went canoeing, and I'm like, hey, I'm in town. You want to hang out? And that's how we end up getting together and hanging out. But yeah, man, people tend to forget about the tornado, in which the tornado was the most scariest event because I got to register what was happening.
Right.
See, the shooting, he killed 9 people and injured 32 people in 30 seconds. So when you listen to my story before and now, you will hear that you won't hear a lot, because my coping mechanism is I'm denying what's happening or I'm blocking things out. But if you go to now, you'll start hearing more unravel on what that night looked like, because I'm slow. My brain's like a Rubik's Cube. I'm protecting myself. So I block a little piece off so I don't speak on it, because if I speak on it, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get up the next day and do what I do in life, moving. But as time goes by, I'm slowly getting better and better.
Oh yeah, I understand that 110%. And you know, I talk about this all the time. And I'm sure you'll agree. Those first few seconds when you wake up in the morning are probably the hardest. You know, for me they are. I wake up and I'm pissed off that I woke up. You know,
and you're so right, bro. Because you know what I tell other survivors, I tell them, I said, you don't even understand what your victory is, because you know and I know I can sit on this couch for a whole year and don't move. So for us to get up and put 2 feet on the ground and walk to the door and check our mail, that is my victory of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean, I've said it numerous times on the show, right? And I've said it to Brett that I don't know that I would have the strength to get up off that couch had I experienced, you know, what either of you went through, right? Like, I don't know that I would personally have that that ability.
Some don't.
It takes a lot.
Yeah,
Some
some don't, unfortunately. And you know, I won't even lie, you know, a lot of days, you know, I won't ever do anything because of my kids, but there are a lot of days where, you know, I want to take that toaster bath, you know.
and that's fine to think of that. And I need people to understand that having suicidal thoughts don't mean you're suicidal. But America's so scared to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You know, there's days where I'm like, man, I should just run my truck off the road. I done did everything I can do. But guess what? I'm on this podcast with you, so we're here.
Exactly. And that, you know, we can touch on this a little bit later, but it's a lot to do with men's mental health and how stigmatized it is, how, you know, how we were raised. Hey, throw some dirt on it. What are you doing? Crying? Don't
Suck
cry
it
on
up.
everything. Yeah. And therapy has been a fucking lifesaver for me. So we can get into that later, but yeah,
And it's so crazy, because when I came home and I finished my master's, my first master's in business, I have an MBA. But after the shooting, I realized that wasn't the master I was supposed to get. So I ended up getting a master's in social work, because much as the hell that I went through, but also he's put me in places that be able to help and heal others. Mm-hmm. So I have 2 masters, you know, but I wish I would knew social work was first, so I could have saved me some money. You know,
I mean, I get that. I have a PhD in sociology, so I get that.
You know, so there's these two different side degrees. You know, I did the business because, you know, that's what I do. I own businesses and stuff like that. But my purpose that God has planted on me is to be able to help others and, you know, trauma and stuff like that. So I end up getting my MSW.
Yeah, this brings up an interesting question, right? Because religion doesn't come up a lot because I'm agnostic. Brett has his also similar belief systems.
Oh no,
A lot of
I'm straight up atheist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't really talk about the role that religion plays, but
I do.
as a scientist that studies, right, these kind of event and studies religion in a lot of contexts, religion can be very helpful in helping people overcome things that happen to them. Were you a very religious man before the event?
Oh yeah. Now that's one thing in this household growing up, and especially as a kid, my grandma didn't play. We had to go to church every Sunday. Much
Mhm.
as I didn't want to go to church, I still had to go there and read scriptures when it come Easter and stuff like that. So, you know, always been a man of God. But the time when I was, and that's where I go back to when I did my prison time, you know, that's when shit, you know, I'm young, I ain't think my shit stink. You know, I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
But he let me know that, hey, I can give it and take it from you in a heartbeat. So what he did was, and that's why I said he put me in prison because he knew the fight that I was going to be fighting now.
So
He humbled me.
so eh, how how did your faith change after this event? Did you waver at all? Did you become stronger? Like what happened? Like,
So I didn't become stronger because it was in there.
mhm,
So as I always say, and this is, you know, as we all have different faith opinions, everything starts and ends with a choice. I mean, that's the Adam and Eve story. So I was in prison. I could have got out and did what I wanted to do. Everything starts and ends with a choice. I could be doing what I'm doing now, advocating, or I could be somewhere just pissed at the world, hate
mhm,
everybody. So the strength been there. It was it was all on. Am I going to unlock it? I have the choice, you know.
Right.
But that's when I leaned on him and the strength that he gave me, because, as I said, my prior past, you don't see me on cameras. You don't. I'm the person all the way in the background. But
mhm,
now in the last 5 years, I'm on news. I'm this and this and that. Like, damn, who are you?
mhm,
You know.
mhm.
But you know, when you just give your all to him and just let him work through you, anything's possible. And and I'm proof in the pudding, because
Yeah.
some days I wake up like, who the hell am I? Like, this not you, but it is. It
Did
been me the whole time.
right. Did your faith waver at all? Or was it just did it just
Oh no,
like
so you know, if any human say it didn't, you know, hell yeah, I question him. If anybody don't question that, then I'm human. I'm going to question. You
right?
know, why me? You know, first of all, I was saying, first you try to take me in my house from the tornado, because I ain't just saying like a window flew off. I'm talking about my house was level while I was in the basement. The whole top was gone. So, and then 40 days later, he take my father. So hell yeah, I was questioning him. Why me? Why me? But then I start to think like, was that him or is that the devil? You know, we put a lot of things on him, but then that goes back to the choice. I had the choice to go to the Oregon district, you know. So it wavers back and forth. Like, I had the choice to call my dad and say, hey, you want to hang out? And that's one thing from the Bible, you know what I mean? From That's what he gave men and women: choice. Eat the apple. So, you know, and that's why I tell people to make the best choices in your life that you can live with here on earth and after, if
Mhm.
you're doing something for right.
Well, and I really appreciate the honesty. Like Ben said, you know, we don't religion doesn't come up very much. You know, I know a lot about religion and
Mm-hmm.
everything, but what I really appreciated right there is just like the honesty. You know, when you were like, hell yeah, you know, like if you say that you wouldn't question, then you know you're lying. So that like honesty, I fucking love. I appreciate it. You
Yeah,
know.
I mean, why wouldn't you question? Why are you doing this to me? I'm doing everything you want me to do. I'm walking the right path. I'm doing everything. But I guess he
Well,
called him my dad.
Like I
He had
said,
to be.
I was raised Catholic. But I'm agnostic now. But I think it would be if I were like experience what you did in that 3-month period, 4-month period, right? Losing your house to a tornado, then your dad, right? Like it would be hard for me not to see comparisons with like Job, right? And what he was going through.
And that's
And
what a lot of people say about me too.
yeah, it would be really hard not to see those kinds of comparisons. Um, so yeah, I appreciate you talking on that and speaking on that. Because like Brett and I were saying, it's not often. A lot of people, they experience these events, and a lot of them that we've talked to, they lose their faith if they had it, right, and walk away from it. So it's very, I guess, refreshing is the word I'm
Right.
looking for, to hear someone that actually found strength in their faith.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do it without him.
Well,
You know.
and not like, and I don't want to say anything negative, but you'll get what I'm saying. And you're not being one of those Facebook Christians, you know what I'm
Oh
saying,
yeah.
where everything is perfect and everything. I never wavered, you know, like the honesty is fucking like I love it because me and you talk, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
I'm just saying,
like we
anybody,
people.
like even the truth, like what's the name like that, like I just don't see why you wouldn't have questioned him, like why me, why me?
Well,
You know?
especially because, and when we get into the event, like it was a double hit for you, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not even talking about the tornadoes because I didn't even know about that. In 2019, I went to work, came home, didn't care about nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't know about tornadoes sitting
Right.
in Dayton, Ohio. So that just blew my mind earlier. But at the time of the shooting, you were there as well. So it's not like, like in my situation, I wasn't there, you know. Um, didn't have your situation as we'll get into it and everything, but you were also there, so you're also a victim of it and a survivor. So for you to take that 2 hit and continue, like, hats off to you, brother, like, truly, because I don't know, like, I know Ben
Listen,
always says.
I don't know either. Uh, but yeah, I quit questioning and just keep doing. I got tired of asking why. Now it's like, why not me? Because some people, and I ain't saying we even at the brink, but some of this stuff, man, it breaks people all the way down. Whether we can take our own life or be on drugs, be homeless somewhere. So, he. Now, this is a question I want to ask him when I go there. Why did you pick me? They always say he won't put too much on your shoulder that you can't handle. I'm like, man, you could at least text me first. Like something, let me know what I'm about to experience or something. Cause I'm just like, but he knows deep and down that I hate saying it, to take our loved ones. He know that what it builds out of us to be able to help the next person. So, much as I hate it, I don't know. It's a hit and miss with me on that.
Yeah, but it's thought provoking, right? Like I can see it, like, and when you're saying it, it isn't just like, okay, this is it and this is all it is. Like you're questioning and everything, which is something that I love. Like I'm not an extremely educated man. I just did high school. I went to the oil fields after that, but I love learning. I love learning something new every day and questioning and everything. And if you're
And
not
about life, so you're educated.
yeah, but I feel like if you're not learning, you're not living, and if you're not questioning anything, then you're not learning anything. So I really appreciated that. Um, but getting into that, how did that day start?
So, I was still coming off the tornado, because every day that you go out and clean the yard, you think you clean it up, and then when sunlight comes back up, still like the same mess that was there. And
Yeah.
then,
What do you do like when you lose your house? Like that is something
man,
like
so what I did is I had to stay in here because even through the midst of the tornadoes, we had people that was going in. I ain't gonna say breaking in houses because the house you can walk right in, but they was stealing and looting. So I sent my family to their family, and I stayed here, me and my dog, with a generator and no food and nothing. But the community would bring food because people came from all over the country, and we just stood here and protected our community and our properties. And you know what I mean. But that tornado was something scary, you know, because Dayton, Ohio, we're in a valley. We're not even supposed to get tornadoes. So to get 18 of them, we look like Desert Storm. If you ever get a chance to pull up pictures of the Dayton, Ohio tornado, you're gonna see how it obliterated. My community was the worst, you know. And I never forget that day. I was just it was Memorial Day because I always do my cookout the day before, and I'm like, nah, I ain't going home. And I'm seeing it rain. I'm just looking out the window, raining hard as hell. And my neighbor, he's in his garage. I'm watching him, but I see his tree in the front yard, and I just see that thing just go forward, like, whoop. So I called my dog, like, no, my old lady and them was back. So I'm like, hey, put your shoes on, go to the basement. So while they're down there, all that's happening. So I get down there, my dog wouldn't come. So I'm like, come on, come on. So I had to run back up, pick him up, carry him down the basement. As soon as I got on the last stair, the lights went out. And when I say it sounds like a train, an airplane, and I'm just hearing everything because I got wood floors. I'm just hearing everything, doom, 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 doom. And I'm like, ooh wee. So I come upstairs, everything's gone. But I knew the daylight when we going about to see the whole neighborhood. Man, he came out that morning. It looked like war. I mean, it was sad, and a lot of people had to relocate because I'm in a community where it's pretty much retirement. So a lot of people are living off their pension and stuff like that. So the insurance company was scamming people, not paying, giving them their money. I learned so much out of that situation, but you know, I don't know how to cut no trees down and stuff like that. So that was stressing me out. Then people from across the country came and started helping out, and that was a blessing. But when the day of the shooting, my buddy was like, man, you want to go canoeing? I'm just like, no, I don't have time to do it. If you ain't up here with a broom and a shovel, I don't got time. Then I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna get on the water and hang out. And when I say that was the best day, I mean, because you don't find nobody wrong on the river. Everybody on the river is having a good time. You know, they're tubing, cabrewing, whatever. Everybody's having a good time. There's no anger or nothing on there. So we had a good time. So while I'm down there, I called my dad like, hey, I'm in town. You want to hang out? So we stop over my mom's, drinking Jack Daniel, hanging out. So I'm like, hey, y'all want to come back up to Dayton and go to the Oregon district? And I usually go to another place, which is a little bit more ghetto, but shit, he probably would still be here for real. But we go there, hang out, and this how I tell you stuff is so crazy. My dad's already drunk in the back seat, sleep. So I'm like, hey, stay in the car. We just about to go in and have some drinks. He's like, nah, if you going in, I'm coming in. So boom, we go inside, we hang out. He got his SSI check, so he buying all the drinks. You know, he's buying all the drinks. So I'm like, okay then. But then the security like, hey, we got to kick your dad out because he's dancing too provocative. Man, I'm just gonna speed it up and come back. After the shooting, my sister showed me the video. Man, my dad was dancing like COVID 6 feet. The girl didn't even know he was behind her. But back to the story, I'm like, I'm tired. I've been on the river all day, sun, drinking. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go. So me and my child's mother, we leave Newcomb's and head out. While we're heading out, my dad's with us too. My sister, that we don't have the same dads. Her and her husband is still in Newcomb's. So I tell the security guard like, hey, can you go get my sister and just tell him we outside? But she never makes it outside because in the midst of that, while we're standing there waiting on my sister and her husband to come out, you know, everybody's on the sidewalk. There's a taco stand in front of us because we always eat there. And we're standing in line, but we're in between cars in the street. I just see a man walk down the side of a building with a body armor on and AR-15 and just comes onto the sidewalk and just starts shooting. Like when you watch it on CNN, you see I don't get down or nothing because I'm just like, the Oregon district is a very popular entertainment district where like our UD students go, where it's heavily guarded and it's not supposed to be no type of shit that happens down there, but that changed in 2019. But as he comes on, I'm like, oh, man, he just got to be drunk, college student drunk. I'm like, man, they about to whip his ass when they find out that's, whatever it is. But he didn't run or nothing. He just walked onto the sidewalk, started shooting. Everybody scattered. But how he got to the other side of the street where they killed him at while he was trying to get into another club is he stepped over where we was at in the car. Standing in between the cars, because my dad, so I was on the left, my dad was in the middle, and my child's mother was on the right. They went down. He stepped over her, and he had the gun pointed, and I'm just sitting here looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? But he went on about his business. When I say all he had to do was do that, he would have killed me. But so I'm fast forward so you can see why all that's lined up.
Yeah.
He killed his sister in front of me too. So he killed it. So my dad was the first person he shot, but my dad and his sister was lined up just in front of each other. She was in the front and my dad was in the back. She was at the taco stand because at the time when he went over there and now people really panicking and calling the police, she's like, I've been shot. So I'm trying to pick up the phone and call police, but everybody's calling. So I'm turning back to my dad like, hey, man, get the hell up. We getting the hell up out of here. But he's laying there with his eyes closed. And I always tell people, if you ever seen Baby Boy with Tyrese, where he thought when he had that vision where he thought he got shot in the front yard, I'm like, just because I didn't panic don't mean that he didn't panic. So I'm just thinking that he's still in the shop. So I'm like, man, get up, get up. So I'm going back to the sister, checking on her and coming back to my dad. So I take my phone out and I shine it on his chest. But I don't see no blood. I'm like, man, get the hell up. We getting up out of here. But his eyes is just open like he wants to say something, but he's just laying there. And then I take the phone and I shine it around his shoulder and I start seeing the blood and stuff coming up around his shoulder and head. So I start doing CPR and just screaming for help while there's a full-blown rage war going on in the streets between the shooter and the police. But I'm sitting there doing CPR, but I knew he slowly left, and I just stopped doing CPR and just wrapped my hands around him and just kept telling him I love him, like, come on, get up, I love you, I love you, I love you. Then while I'm doing CPR and I stopped, it was a trooper that came because they couldn't pry me off my dad, but they didn't know it was my dad. They put me in handcuffs. And the sheriff was like, that's his dad, you dumbass. So they took me out of handcuffs and put me on the corner while they was performing their paramedic duties on my dad. But I knew he was gone. But while I'm on the corner, I'm smacking phones out of people's hands because I'm just irate right now because I don't even know what's going on. But reality kicked in when I seen them place the sheet over my father, and I just ran to him and I just dropped down on the ground and started fucking that concrete up. And I don't remember nothing. So then the FBI come like, hey, take him to the corner. And they put all like the survivors on the bus because they wanted to talk. But while walking to that bus, I'm stepping over bodies, shoes, blood, all types of stuff. So they put me on the bus and I tore that whole bus up. So they said, Dion, please just go home. We'll come and talk to you. Because there's no way you're not going to be able to talk to me because I don't even know I don't even know what's going on right now. I know I came with 5 and I'm leaving with 4. And that one person that's not coming with me is my father. So now as we get back home, and I don't put this in my book, but I speak on it as we get back home, I come to the house. Now, this is how I find out PTSD is real because I was in a war zone mindset because I don't know what's going on. Everything just happened. This all happened in 30 seconds. And we get whisked away. Now I'm home. So now I'm in my bushes with my gun. Because I'm like, I'm not letting nobody else get hurt. I don't know what's going on. But I'm so happy, and this is where God comes into my life. He was protecting me because, man, I was ready to shoot at anything coming on the street because I don't know what's what, who's who, was there another? So my whole street came down and just was talking to me in the bushes. And I don't remember how they even got it from me. I don't remember nothing about that day because I was in another world. I was in another world. And, you know, that night I don't wish on nobody because it's a nightmare. As I'm talking to you now, I'm replaying it out. And, you know, I'm still going through like things with that as well, because at the beginning, people always say, look, Dion, at least you was there with your father in those last moments. And sometimes I'm like, did I really want to be there? You
Yeah,
know,
those visions, seeing that over and over.
because but now I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna go back and bring it back forward because it's so weird. Remember when we got down there and my dad was sleeping and said, "Oh, don't worry, I'm gonna come in anyway." When I told him to stay in the car. So if he didn't get out the car, who was that? Who would that have been?
Hmm.
Me. My daughter could have lost her mom, dad, grandpa, and aunt all in one night. So, you know, that right there. And then, you know, my father was shot 5 times and we were standing side by side and not one bullet touched me. So if I don't have a purpose on this world to do whatever the hell I'm supposed to do, then I don't know what my mission is, but I know that he gave his life for my life. So I'm gonna continue to keep standing in places, standing in faces, creating cases, whatever the case it may be, and keep fighting for not just my father, but for all lives, because, you know, I didn't think that was going to be my last moment with my father, you know, from having a great time. I remember earlier that day, I was praying for El Paso because we had 2 mass shootings that happened on our day.
Mm-hmm.
We had the El Paso and Walmart.
Yep.
So I remember praying for them. And then here come the next day, I'm on the news.
Yeah.
So, you know, but, you know, the one thing that used to hurt me so much, but I'm better with it now because, like I said, they always say, "Dion, at least you was there with your father." But I hope that I gave my father some peace of him knowing that his son wasn't laying beside him. Because what's the one thing a mother and father get their life for?
They
Their child.
kids.
So for my dad to, before he transitioned, to see me doing CPR on him, I hope it gave him peace, saying I'm not laying right beside him as well.
Now, Dion,
So,
were you hurt yourself in the shooting?
no, I don't think so. I don't even know. I didn't get shot. I maybe some fragments or something, but if anything, I probably hurt myself because I just went. That night was so blurred. I don't remember too much of it, you know, because even with the shooting, me and the FBI got into it because they like, do you remember talking to that girl? And that's his sister. So where I'm going with this is no, I wasn't talking to a girl. There was a guy that got shot in front of me. But in the database, his sister is a transgender. So because me and the FBI was going back and forth, I'm like, why am I talking to a girl and I'm with my lady? You know what I mean? So, but when it started dying down and all that,
You can start to think all the
yeah, I
adrenaline and
started
shit.
feeling like, oh yeah, that's that person that I was talking to, and that's when, you know what I mean, the FBI was like, yeah, we knew, we just knew you wasn't there yet. But you know, his name, well, her name to the transgender name is Jordan Coffer, you know, and so, yeah, it was, I don't understand it from a tornado, from my lifestyle. Either I would never think I would ever be in a tornado or a damn mass shooting.
Well, you know, and you know, I understand tornadoes living in Florida, right? With
In
hurricanes,
Ohio, though,
right?
we don't get them. We don't get them in the valley in Ohio.
Yeah.
Well,
But
and with that, they can't escape though when they're in the valley.
Yeah,
So that's
that's
why
why I
they
said.
did
That's
so
why they
much
said
damage.
if it ever got into the valley, it'd tear us up, and it sure the hell did. And
yeah,
we still.
but I was gonna say that's actually the more rare event these days, right? Like, you know, I can understand tornadoes, right? Because I live in Florida with the hurricanes, but a lot of people in America don't experience that, right? But we're getting to a point where all of us are either directly or indirectly affected by gun violence,
Right.
right? And, you know, I want to talk real quick before, because we're going to transition to the next hour here in just a few minutes and we'll reset the show. But like before that, you know, you mentioned a few times that, you know, this whole event was like less than 30 seconds. And you mentioned that he had the AR-15, right? He also had a 100-round drum, right? Like one of the things Brett and I have talked about numerous times is magazine capacity bands, right? Especially those high capacity magazines. He fired 41 bullets in 30 seconds, right? How many people could have been still alive or not injured?
A lot.
If it hadn't been that.
A lot. And I don't know if you looked it up, but I have the first lawsuit in the country. I don't know if you've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Against,
I did. I figured we'd talk about that next hour.
Okay. Yeah, but and that's the things I tell people, like, you know, I don't want no lives to be taken. But when you got that type of weapon that's firing that many rounds, the totality is going to be high. Even the police got to reload, you know, and so we know that we can save lives. The fatality rate be less. Like I said, we want 0, but the totality level will be less than all of that in that amount of seconds. Like, I'm not an avid shooter. I don't know how to shoot gun, but you give me that gun with that many rounds, I'm just going to spell the alphabet. And well, if I don't,
and here's something that people have never fired that weapon that don't know about that weapon, right? Brett and I know, right? But like the AR-15, the way it is designed, there's no recoil, right? I can aim at you and pull that trigger as fast as I can pull it, and the gun only moves if I move my hands.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got a gas chamber release system that like shoots the recoil out the side as it ejects the shell. And so the person standing next to you, it feels like they're getting punched in the face. But for you, your gun will move only a little bit. So like really it's only if you have tremors or you're just like really nervous and you're shaking that the gun will move at all. Like you can keep the gun focused on your targets. That's what makes one of the many things that makes them so deadly, right? Is their ability to not only fire a lot of rounds like we saw with you, but also their ability to stay on target and not, you know, if I take a handgun and fire it, my hand's going to jerk.
Right. It jerks back.
No matter what type of ammunition I fire, unless it's like a 22 or something, right? But with that AR-15, I can just sit here and do this just like this, and the gun is not moving.
So it only makes that stabilizer just makes it more deadlier, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If that stabilizer, that means it's not even moving at all.
Like Brett experienced with the Hellfire trigger or like a bump stock or something like that, that then turns this semi-automatic weapon into a fully automatic weapon, right? You have now like you've created a killing machine. I do encourage everyone listening and you as well, Dion, just go to your local gun range and just fire one. Just like rent one for like just a couple of minutes, just to shoot it. And you can see. And that's why Brett has the beliefs that he does about those weapons, about reinstating the AR-15 bans. And that's one of the reasons why like I'm not opposed to the bans, right? Because civilians don't need those kinds of weapons.
Damn right about that. You know, damn right about that. That ain't nothing but it's nothing but for war, for you to go put a lot of families in pain like us for no reason.
Yeah, and that's why, like, you know, that's why I advocate so hard for the assault weapons ban, is because, I mean, just imagine had the weapon not been an assault rifle, how many people then would have been still alive? You know, like we already talked about the drum size of that, but the capacity to fire it that many times, there's a possibility that your dad maybe could have been hit once, right, and survived and everything like that, which is, you know, my whole thing behind the assault weapons ban that we advocate for.
Yeah. Well, the guy who invented the AR-15 never wanted it sold to civilians, and he was very mad that that's what ended up. He designed it for the U.S. Army, but the Army went with the M16A1 platform instead, and they're very similar. It's just the AR-15 was single shot, and the M16 had selector switch to do fully auto or bursting fire, and you know, so they went with that for the fully auto, but it was never designed for civilians. They sold it to civilians to recoup the investment that they made in the weapon. You know, it's not only the recoil that we talked about, or the capacity to have high capacity magazines, whether it's 30 rounds or 100-round drum, like in your case, Dion, but also the way that the bullet is designed. This weapon was designed to make sure that people couldn't return to the battlefield, right? Because during World War One, you would have people get shot and they would just patch them up and put them right back out there, right? Because the bullet would go clean through. And this bullet, the way that it affects the flesh, it just, blows it up, tears you up, and you can't go back on the field, right? Like, this weapon has only one purpose.
Yes.
And, yeah, exactly. It is meant to kill and maim. And so, this goes back to what Brett was saying about, like, why he supports that assault weapons ban. But there's many reasons why civilians probably shouldn't have them. I think this is a good reset point, though. Why don't we reset now, and then we'll move into the next. So for you just joining us tonight on Stories from the Cold Dead Hands, we are talking with Dion Green. I'm Dr. Benjamin Dowd-Arrow. I am internationally recognized gun scholar, having published about 17, 18 publications on things ranging from the social determinants of gun ownership and gun policy support. So why do people own guns, and why do they support certain policies, as well as the health and well-being outcomes of gun ownership. My co-host, as always, is Brett Cross. Brett.
Yeah, I'm Brett Cross. I lost my son Uzziah in the Robb Elementary School shooting in Uvalde. And since then, I've been fighting to make sure that nobody else has to suffer the same fate he did, which was literally just going to school and not coming home. And no matter what I say or do, nothing is going to bring back my son, but it can't prevent you from being in my shoes or from being in Dion's shoes. So we continue to fight.
Our guest tonight is Dion Green. Dion, if you would like to take a moment to reintroduce yourself and talk about why you're here.
Yes. Once again, thank you, Benjamin and Brett, for having me on this platform. My name is Dion Green. I'm CEO and founder of the FUDGE Foundation, which was created August 4th, 2019, after the Dayton, Ohio mass shooting that claimed 9 lives, and which one of those lives was my father, Derrick Fudge, who was shot and killed beside me that night. Ever since then, I've become an advocate for gun legislation, mental health, just traveling across the country and being in support to families that are going through what we're going through. Thank y'all for allowing me to be here today.
Yeah, of course.
So thank you for being here.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about, like, we'll move into the FUDGE Foundation in a second, but let's kind of talk about what we were just talking about, right? Like the types of laws that could have potentially kept your father alive, right? We already know something like assault weapons ban, right? We were talking about that, and a high capacity magazine ban, but you brought up mental health. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So, in my case, in the mental health thing, and I'm a very big advocate when it comes to mental health, as being a social worker as well, but also seeing that these are some of the underlying causes of why these things are happening across the country. But with my shooter, he showed signs of this. So before the shooting happened in his high school, he had a rape list and a murder list that was brought up, and this, and that, but nothing happened. And I don't know if that got to do with demographics, which he was in a very upscale community that probably didn't want that attention. But the attention's here now, because when the shooting happened, a lot of the kids came on the television saying, hey, I was on that list. I was on that list. But let that be me, a man of color, do that, I'll probably be in jail. Ain't no probably, I will.
100%.
Absolutely be in jail.
Yeah.
As a sociologist, we can talk about racism in the political system, and the criminal justice system all night long if you wanted to.
Right. So and then as time goes by and we have our debriefing with the FBI about his text messages, emails, man, he was Antifa. He wanted to kill people. He did. So they've been having all of this. He even called the crisis hotline. And this is why I work with crisis hotline a lot, because they didn't know how to keep him on the phone. So he hung up.
Wow. Yeah, and for the our listeners and the people watching a stream right now, this particular shooter, this was the Dayton, Ohio shooting. He had signs of schizophrenia. He was having auditory and visual hallucinations, supposedly, in high school. I want to say that's what his ex-girlfriend like reported to police. Um, and so he had signs of mental instability and violence, and yet he was still able to get a gun.
Right. So him, and he had his friend buy the gun to build or something like that. I know it was something like that. He's out of jail now. He only got like 2 or 3 years out of that situation. But background checks, there's a lot of things that could have been saved. I mean, if they just would have did their damn jobs.
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know.
red flag laws, right? Like could
Right.
have possibly when he was making the murder list, right, and the sexual assault list, that might maybe right. Better background checks that include like mental health, not being able to just buy parts and build a gun, right? Like that should not be allowed. We shouldn't be allowed to just assemble them in our homes. There are a lot of different things that allowed this to happen that any of these steps could have maybe slowed it down, and all of them together would have probably prevented it.
I agree with you 100%. With mines, I blame mines on the high school because he was out of high school when this happened, about 2 years. I blame this on the high school, and that's why there's some things that I want to change with the law because they won't release his file because he's dead, and I forgot that hip or something like that. But I don't. Like I told them, it don't have to be public, but it should go to social workers, other people that work in that realm. So when they see these type of signs, they can start picking it up in schools to save lives. But but the school the Supreme Court blocked it, and the school loved that because they know for real they should be the one held accountable because they start to see the actions just like at home. Them two should be held accountable because if you're living in a house with your child and you don't know what's going on, then that's an issue. And I understand because I speak this to why crime is high, because in today's society, inflation making parents, especially single parents, work 2 to 3 jobs. So their supervision is definitely not what it used to be. And now their kids are not, they might go into the wrong crowd, stuff like that. So I even say inflation plays a part of gun violence. And I was thinking about that about a week ago because I'm just like, well, if your parents is not home and you don't got a good circle of friends around you, you're going to end up going down the wrong path and hanging with the wrong people, and boom, you got a gun in your hand.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's 100% right. Like we know that poverty highly associated with gun violence, like gun homicide in particular, right? Because if you are struggling to find food for your family, right? Like if you're struggling to keep a roof over your head, you are going to do quite a bit to make sure that you can take care of them, right? Like, and so we see like people turn to violent crime in order to like survive. Um, so we know that that's connected, right? But with these mass shootings, one of the things that we see is white toxic masculinity being one of the biggest connectors, right? Like, because you take somebody like me, right, who has been told our whole lives that if you just work hard, you can have everything you want, right? Anybody you want, right? And it's not, this idea of this meritocracy, working hard, getting what you want. We know that's not real. You definitely know it's not real, right?
Right.
Because of the racism and the racial structure, right? And women know it's not real because of the gender structure. But for white men, we've never experienced that. But as wealth inequality continues to grow, and now there's no white middle class anymore, right? Like there's only the ultra rich and the poor. Everybody else is in the poor. They're now seeing those things that they've been promised their whole lives as being unattainable. And rather than blame the structures that are causing it, they are turning around and blaming those around them, right? In this toxic masculinity of acting out in violence, right, is what we see playing out over and over and over. And that's why that 98% of the people who commit these acts are men, and 67% of the people who commit these acts are white, right? So it's overwhelmingly, I would argue, the effects of entitlement.
Right. And so I always say this, so I just had to say this just for people that's watching that has mental health issues. I always say mental health plays a issue a lot, but some of these people are just pure fucking evil. Excuse my language. That's all they want to do. And the reason why
We're not
I bring it up,
Absolutely.
and the reason why I bring it up like that, because I want the people that's on here that are having mental health problems, like, it's all right to say something. The other side is using mental health to keep covering up the mass shooting. So if I'm going through mental health issues, I don't want to say nothing because now Brett's gonna think I'm gonna go kill everybody. So it's putting a stigma on there that I don't want to speak about my problems.
100%. Yeah, and
So
that's 100%. Does mental health probably play a role? I would argue anybody that commits one of these acts is fucking crazy, right? Like anybody, doesn't matter,
fucking
right?
crazy.
100%, right? But the most common mental health issue is depression and anxiety, and those aren't the people going and committing these acts, right?
These are
Like,
evil people.
yeah, exactly. And like I said, it
Hatred.
goes back to that entitlement, right? Like I deserve it, and if I can't have it, you can't have it, kind of thing, right? Only about not even 20%, according to the FBI, have a diagnosed mental health issue at the time of these events, right? And less than 3% have what we would call a psychotic disorder like schizophrenia. And that's not to say for those listening that people with schizophrenia are violent. That is overwhelmingly not true. But of the types of mental health issues that have been linked to violence, schizophrenia is pretty high on that list. So it would be what they would call.
You see how we had to clear it up because it seemed like mental health stigma is making you like,
Right.
oh, now if
But
I
that's my issue, right? Like framing it as a mental health issue irritates me because it really does three things, right? Like three things, right? First, it assumes that a psychologist or a social worker or a psychiatrist can just know who is violent and who is not, right? Like you should just like it's that movie with Tom Cruise, The Minority Report, right? Like you can just psychically know who's going to commit the crime before they do it. And two, because that doesn't happen, right? Then it's just this lone deranged wolf, which then three means there's no purpose in law, because if we can't predict it and it's a crazy lone deranged wolf, then why have any laws? Because you're just hurting the responsible gun owner, right? And so all that then does is put, as you mentioned, a stigma on people who overwhelmingly are not going to be violent, right? Like I suffer from PTSD. And so like I'm depressed a lot, right? Suicidal a lot. I can't get off my couch, right? That's how much energy I have, right? Like I'm not violent, but I would not be as open to talk about my mental health issues if I thought people were going to assume that I'm going to go shoot up a school.
And so because I get that all the time when I'm fighting against the other side. That's their number one. That's really their only fight that they always would throw up. Other than the Second Amendment and mental health. So I always say, well, okay. I'm like, well, shit. I did 8 years in prison, black man, lost my house to a tornado, lost my father, and I'm doing nothing but spreading love and light. So. Yep. We can't keep using that stigma. I mean, like you said, mental health's in there, but I want to speak for the people that really have it, that are really scared to speak out because they're going to get looked at different. And I want 100%. Y'all to speak up because we want to get you help. So don't.
And especially as men, right? Like I feel we have a responsibility to talk about our mental health and the things that we experience, right? Which is why I talk about my suicide attempts to my students. I teach course called Guns and Society at FSU. And when
I had to come down one day, man, you got to let me.
Anytime.
I'll fly down. I can fly for free. Let me know.
And when I talk about suicide, because overwhelmingly, as tragic as these events are, suicide is the number one gun death, right? I tell my story. And I do that even though it breaks me and it's been 10 years, it's still hard for me to talk through because it's so important that the men in that room hear it and know that it's normal to feel this way, know that these things are normal to talk about and normalize these conversations because we do have an issue with masculinity, right, and talking about it.
And you're so right. So in all my speeches that I give across the country and speak, I always tell either survivors or other people that have been through, if you're able to share your story, please share it because somebody in that room is going through something similar, but they're afraid to speak up. So you not knowing that your story might save that person's life and they might not open up to you, but they might come to you like, hey, Benjamin, So what did you do? They might just nitpick you, but that nitpicking is good because they're slowly opening up. So, I tell people, and I know we all grieve and heal different. Some can speak and some can't. But if you're able to share it, let it out, because you will touch so many people that you didn't know, because they can be like, damn, I'm going through that too. I'm not alone.
Yeah. 100% agree. I think that we don't, especially as men, do enough to talk about our emotions, right? Because we're only allowed to express anger publicly and not be ridiculed, right? Like I can't just break down and cry in front of you without suffering that stigma, going back to what we were just talking to. And I think normalizing these conversations is the first step in maybe breaking that toxic masculinity that leads to these kinds of events. Right.
Well,
Because like I said, it's not really women doing it. It's overwhelmingly 98, 99% of the people who do these acts are men, and the vast majority are white men.
well, and then that even goes into the advocating part as well. And we talk about this all the time. And I'm sure you've seen this as well, brother. There's not that many men in this fight because you have to be able to be vulnerable. And that is something that, has been stigmatized. Like, oh, well, if you're vulnerable, if you shed a tear, if you do this, if you do that, then you're less of a man. This is why I can probably, prominent figures in the GBP, I can probably count on my hand the number that are men.
I'm so happy you said that, Brett, because the first thing that people always say, Dion, what do you do for your healing? And I say the first step to healing is vulnerability. Because once you become vulnerable, see, right now, people only want to heal the surface. But when you become vulnerable, you start to get to the root cause deep down inside. And I tell people, first of all, like I always say, you only get one of each. And if you don't see me cry over my dad and mom, then you need to pray over me. And then second of all, I said, once you see me cry, I don't think I won't whoop your ass either.
I mean, that's fair, right? Like, real quick before we move into, because I want to I'll spend a lot of time talking about your foundation, but like, one more thing I want to say though, because you mentioned like a lot of these pro-gun nuts, Gravy Seals, only talk about like, either the 2A or they talk about how it's the mental health problem. And yet it's overwhelmingly Republican politicians who fight against mental health funding.
Yep.
So backwards, right?
Yeah.
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 Well,
Brad, you want to explain why we think it is?
Yeah, it's to keep that boogeyman there, right? So if we keep blaming it on mental health, these politicians, they keep blaming it on mental health. It's not the guide. Then when these things happen, they can continue to blame it on the mental health. But as soon as we address mental health and actually fund it and destigmatize it and everything, and these events are still going to happen, then they would have to admit that the firearms are part of the problem. And that is something that they won't do because of the gun lobby. When we look at it after Rob happened, after, Uzi was killed, these politicians wore AR pins on their lapels. I know we was in DC together and looking at them and shit. And that's why, you keep that boogeyman. So if we don't address it, we're going to blame it on the mental health. But if we don't address it, then we don't have to talk about root causes as well. Because yes, mental health has a part to play in it, but the guns, the ease of access to these things are overwhelmingly the reason that it happens. And I talk about this all the time, especially on my TikTok lives, somebody can be batshit crazy. If that's the terminology we want to use, somebody can be batshit crazy, but if they don't have access to the guns, then they can't go in there and do that. Because tell me, how many mass nunchuckings have you heard of? None.
Even when we have them, because like they always want to scream knives, right? Like, oh, they would find a way. If they can't get a gun, they would use something else. We've had examples of mass stabbings in this country, right? Like one of my favorites to pull up is a high school out of Pennsylvania in 2014. 22 people got stabbed, like 2 or 3 of them critically injured. And Dion, you want to guess how many died?
Zero.
Not a damn person died, right?
I'd rather fight a knife any day.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Me too, right? Like, could somebody have died? Sure. But you're not going to see something like what you experienced, what Brett's son experienced, what the Las Vegas people experienced, right? You're not going to see dozens of people injured and, dozens killed, right? You're just not going to see that in a knife attack,
Yeah,
right?
they use the mental health to take the heat off of the NRA.
Right.
Yep.
So if we fund money into mental health, we keep saying that's the issue. It's not the guns. We keep the heat off of them. But with the 2A,
Yeah.
they so big on it. But why won't they really break it down and describe what a gun is? Because back then that gun was for muffets, whatever that gun's called. It ain't safe for mass destruction weapons.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
the greatest part is that, because like I said, I have these conversations daily on my TikTok. It is so funny to see how many of them don't know the 27 words of the Second Amendment. They'll shout about it. I should be able to own whatever I want because the
Shall not
Second
be
Amendment.
infringed. That's the only
that
5
is
words they know.
That's all they know.
They do not know the rest of it. They also don't know, though, that the well-regulated militia actually has mentioned in the actual Constitution itself, and that it says who can regulate it and what people can carry and who has the power to control it and give it orders and who's in charge. They don't know any of that, right? All they know is that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. They forget about the comma, though, between arms and shall. And they also don't know anything that precedes the right of the people, right? And it's always funny to watch as they skid around it. But like going back to kind of Republican politicians, Brett, how many billions of dollars did Skeletor Abbott cut from mental health funding right before Rob?
In April, he cut $211 million from the Health and Human Services department in Texas and sent it to the border.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So money
we're seeing that's the shortest all over the country though, because we're losing money here when it comes to mental health and VOCA, because I'm very big on VOCA. I changed the law here on VOCA. So that fund has been getting chopped down and stuff like that. And
it goes back to Reagan, right? Like Ronald Reagan, and I will argue till my dying day that Ronald Reagan is the devil, and that all bad things lead back to Reagan. That's where it all starts, right? But when Reagan was governor of California, he ended all state-funded mental health institutions, which is why California has the homeless issue that it does today. And then when he became president, he ended all federal funding of state-run mental health hospitals across the country. And that was his first act, because it had been an executive order that Jimmy Carter put into place while he was president to fund these mental health hospitals. And the minute Reagan got elected, he struck down that executive order and cut all funding to those hospitals.
See, it don't be about the people. It'll be about their egos.
Yep. 100%.
Yep. And the money they can make. All right, Dion, let's talk a little bit about the FUDGE Foundation. So tell us, how it came about, and what you do.
So, FUDGE Foundation spells FUDGE, but what it stands for is Flourishing Under Distress, Giving Encouragement, which is the acronym for FUDGE. My father's last name, Derrick Fudge. But my nonprofit was created after the shooting that happened here in 2019. And what my nonprofit does is help survivors and anybody from domestic violence to gun violence, community violence, human trafficking, with support, resources, and anything that I can get my hand on to help a person be able to move further on in their journey. The reason what really helped me start my nonprofit is I was seeing the amount of people that was getting denied VOCA. Never heard of it, but VOCA, Victim of Crime Compensation. And what I realized is that the way that thing was structured, the barriers was so high that I knew what culture it was really affecting. And it pretty much was affecting the Black and brown culture when it came to the barriers of being in prison, having this, and that. So, as my father was 9 years and 6 months from not being in prison, my father was denied because he was not 10 years. But as I told them on the state floor while I was speaking, that, hey, he didn't ask to die. So, and shouldn't nobody that experienced something shouldn't have to worry about how to bury their loved one. That's just another stress on top of stress. And I went through all of that. And that what made me start my foundation. I ended up at the state house every week fighting. The first year, me and Senator Peggy Lehner fought it, but as you know, in lame duck session, stand your ground came. So I started fighting that, which has passed in every state across the country. And then we submitted it again the following year, and we got it passed, and it got revised that it took all the barriers off. So it don't matter if you got a felony or nothing, you can go back, you can apply. But also I made it retroactive for people like myself and survivors down there that got denied. And you also was able to get it. So people don't understand, like, if me and Benjamin was in something and something happened to me, and Ben, you don't share the information, you will be denied that. But what they don't understand, in the Black and brown community, retaliation is real in any community if they want to retaliate. So that got lifted off of there. So we got that passed in 2022. Awesome. And I've been working on it on a nationwide aspect with every town, because, you know, as I tell people, yes, me and Brett, we're upset that we lost our loved ones, but we are the ones that are still here. Yeah. We're the ones that need to get through it. So I always share with them, this is what it looks like. And this goes back to the government. So when the shooting happened with my father, you know, I'm running from my feelings. So what every man probably does, I'm drowning myself in alcohol. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to run from it. So the alcohol is real. The rest is what I'm going to show you what it looks like if we don't get the help. So I'm drinking alcohol. I'm running away from life. I'm not checking my mailbox. I don't care nothing about life. So I'm probably missing bills, not paying rent, or whatever the case may be. So boom, now I'm almost looking to go homeless. But now that alcohol is not doing it, I done went through weed. The weed's not doing too much. So now I need to go to harder drugs. But damn, I done lost my house. So I done went from alcohol to hard drugs. Now I'm homeless. But now I don't got no money. But I need these drugs. So when I see Ben leave his class, I'm gonna rob him. So you got substance abuse, homelessness, and crime if we don't take care of us that are still here. So we 100%. Need funding to be able to give people the tools and resources to be able to move forward in their life. I always tell survivors, you can never be who you was once you experience something so dramatic. I changed twice in 2019, from the tornado. Then I had a 30-day window. Then I changed again. Mm-hmm. But you can never be who you were. What you can do is rebuild who you are. And I hope that you come out stronger. But we got to be able to have those resources, those tools there, and whatever we need to get that person back on track. Because if not, it's still going to cost you, because either I'm going to commit a crime and go to prison. Now you're paying for my meal and my bedding, homelessness, drugs, whatever the case may be. So it's a cycle, but at the end of the day, I don't think they want to end it, because I mean, we know Big Pharma runs this world as well. So we want alcohol to stay, we want mental health to stay, we want these places to be operating at a high level, you know. So that was really my issue with that. And ever since then, man, I've been traveling across the country. Southwest Airlines, they fly me all across the country. So I respond to all mass shootings, as I respond to Uvalde, Buffalo, Highland Park, Maine, Nashville, just being there, being support, and just leaning, giving my shoulder, my arm, and a hug, and I cry.
You know, and to kind of go back to something you said, right, because we're talking about violence and poverty, right, but you mentioned Ohio passed the stand your ground law, right? Like there are 38 states that have stand your ground, and we know in the states that have passed that escalation has increased, right? Like, you know, road rage incidences have gone up, you know, violence between people. In the state of Georgia, when they passed the stand your ground law, I want to say it was in 2016, they also passed and allowed guns at bars and other places. Schools. Yep. And the weekend it went into effect, there was a shootout at a bar in Valdosta, Georgia. Like the very weekend that it went into effect. Two guys got into a fight. I think it was over a woman. They went outside, drew guns on each other, and shot at each other. I don't think anyone was harmed in that, luckily. But you know, we see those kinds of events happen all the time. Florida was the first state in 2005 to pass stand your ground. And like I said, now there are 38 states with that.
So I always say this is the chain of commands. It's always and these are and it flips rotation. Florida, Texas, Ohio, they all follow each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're first cousins.
Yeah. Well, and Florida and Texas go back and forth over who the leader is, right? Like, because Florida was first with stand your ground, but Texas was the first of the two to shift to that constitutional carry, and Florida just passed that, right? And we're probably about to see in Florida, like open carry being just normalized and legalized, right? Because right now it's just concealed unless you're going to a hunting or fishing site. You can carry
right.
Pretty sure Texas is open.
Yeah, in certain places. Florida, I think, is fixing to go everywhere, like open.
No, I think Texas is pretty much open everywhere aside from schools or government buildings. I believe.
I think Ohio is too.
Which I don't know about you, but you ever went into a store and seen some dude with an AR? Like, it freak you out.
I would have left the store. I do that already. Like, I go get my dog food and I see a gun on the hip. I've been in that situation. So I've been where
I'm out.
So, I don't know if he turned around and I'm scratching my eye, he might look bad. Whether he shoot me or pull it out, it's still traumatizing. So I just go sit in my car till he leave the damn store.
Well, and you have a different intersection than I do, right? Like, they're probably not going to look at me and view me as a threat, right?
Yeah.
But we see, especially in stand your ground states, I'll mention a case in Hillsborough County. A black man and his girlfriend pulled into a parking spot. It was a handicapped parking spot. He went inside. She stayed in the car. White man comes over, starts yelling at her through the car. He comes outside and is like, "What the hell? Why are you yelling at my girlfriend?" Kind of pushes him away from the car. The guy draws a gun and shoots and kills him, right? And claims stand your ground.
And one of the things with the foundation is too, especially for my Black and brown community, is I bring a lot of awareness because they, like people in my community, they'll see the stand your ground like, oh, I can carry a gun, but I always got to break the systemic part down to them. Like, hey, let me tell you the difference between Bob and you, Ray. You and Bob and Ray have the same criminal records, nothing and stuff like that. You will stand your ground. You will go to jail till they figure out, and Bob goes home until they want him to come in and answer some questions. So,
the perfect example, Philando Castile.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. Legal abiding gun owner, a paragon of his community, beloved by his community, known by everybody. He tells the officer, "Hey, I got a gun in the glove box. Let me, the officer tells him to give him the gun, but then shoots him as he's going to give him the weapon and show it to him, right? Like, does the Second Amendment even apply if you're Black and brown?
I don't. I'll be honest with me, it don't. It's that amendment is only for their race. That's actually it really puts us more in harm's way. So when you do shoot and kill us, he had a weapon on him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if we go back to the origin of the Second Amendment, right? Like, this is what a lot of those Gravy Seals don't want to talk about, is that it was the state of Virginia that wanted to maintain the institution of slavery, that pushed for the Second Amendment because they didn't want a federal army that might take slavery away, and they wanted to be able to round up anybody that ran away, right?
The slave chasers.
The Second Amendment. It was about slavery. It was about racism. And we still see that today, right? All the way around, especially if you want to think about like Black Lives Matter, because if you look at the old slave patrol badges that they wore, it's eerily similar to the sheriff's badge that they wear today.
Yep.
You're right about that.
So,
I mean, as you know, that's what's the name, but that amendment, Constitution, that wasn't made for Black and brown people. As I say with the Second and 13th Amendment, those amendments, with gun ownership, pretty much, and I hate to say this, but if it ever goes to war, a lot of us can't go to the store to properly buy one.
Right. Well, and you can see that in, then
it goes to voting. It's all there's so much stuff into that. So now in certain states, we can't vote. So they're keeping us at a level where we don't try to.
You want to go into this conversation? Because I'm happy to, right? Like, because we can look at like prison populations before the end of slavery were pretty consistent at 5 to 10,000 people nationwide. The minute the institution of slavery ended, we passed panhandling laws so that if you didn't have like people today think panhandling, a homeless person asking for money, but that's not what it was. It was if you did not have a piece of U.S. currency on you and you were stopped and asked to produce it, you would go to jail. And who, following the end of slavery, did not have U.S. currency on them, right? Which led to the incarceration of black men, right? Like in the stereotype that black men are criminal. Populations in prisons jumped from 100,000 to 200,000, but they were still relatively stable. In 1973, the Supreme Court said that barriers to voting are unconstitutional, including things like poll taxes and literacy tests and property ownership, and that the only thing that the Constitution would allow you to lose your rights for was crime. And they didn't define what crime was, which is why states with heavier populations of black and brown residents have stricter, like in Louisiana and Mississippi, you can lose your right to vote over certain misdemeanors. But in the state of Maine and Vermont, which guess what the population of those states look like, right? They will roll a voting booth into the cell with you and let you vote.
Oh, wow.
State of Florida, heavily minority populations, right? Heavy percentage. You could not get your right to vote back until we passed the constitutional amendment a couple of years ago, unless the governor himself said you could have it. That was the only way to get it back.
Well, and even then, even to be more specific though, and with the Second Amendment being states' rights and whatnot, you can go and look at states' rights, like individual states' rights on firearms, and you'll see where certain states said that like it had to be revision several times, but where it was only free white men could own firearms.
And that's I got a perfect example of this. This is one you may have heard from me before, Brett, but Dion, I doubt you've heard this case because we don't talk about it much. In the 1930s, there was a case that went before the Florida Supreme Court by the name of Watson v. Stone. And it involved a drunken public man, Moses Watson, a white man. He got stopped for drunk and disorderly, but he also had a concealed firearm. And at the time, the state of Florida, along with all the slave states, had banned open and concealed carry. Like it was illegal to have weapons anywhere following the Civil War. And so he got arrested for that. That's what he went to jail for. It goes all the way to the Florida Supreme Court, where Chief Justice Rivers Buford said in his concurring opinion that these laws had never been intended to be used against the white man. They had only ever been intended to be used against, and I won't say the word he used, but the black laborer, right?
Wow.
And therefore he hadn't committed a crime. And so he was released, right? So, like, we know. And then there was a Supreme Court case, Cruikshanks versus the U.S. I can never remember the hate group, Brett. You're going to have to make me remember who that was. But, like, it's state of Louisiana following the end of the Civil War and Reconstruction. A hate group, we'll just call them the Ku Klux Klan, right? Because that's the one we're all familiar with. They're going around disarming Black Americans in the state. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court because Black Americans are like, hey, I have constitutional rights. This is mine, right? Like, I have the right to this. And the Supreme Court said, because the Second Amendment is a state's right and those people in the Klan are elected officials of the state, there's no constitutional problem here. They can take guns from whoever they want, right? So we see it over and over and over. That's why I asked you, does the Second Amendment, you think, apply to people that don't have my complexion?
It don't apply to us.
Yeah, and I'm seeing 3 states right now. It's Arkansas, Florida, and Tennessee, where it was written in that the free white men of this state shall have a right to keep and bear arms for their common defense. Now, southern states, right?
I want to point out, though, the free part, right? Because that didn't include, like, some, my family's technically Scottish and Irish, and we would have been indentured servants in the time that was written. We wouldn't have been including that. I was talking about rich white men.
Y'all would have been including that.
Yeah, it was rich white men. That's all that was included, right? Like property owners, like
So
the indentured servants, the slaves, the poor. They didn't want them. They didn't want us owning guns. They didn't want the average American having guns.
or women.
Yeah, or
Like I
women.
said, the white male is the most dominant male. I always tell people, and I'll be like, there's been a law for every black man, black woman, even the white woman. There's never been nothing had to be changed for the white man.
100%. That's why, like, when we talk about that, things like reverse racism, we say it doesn't exist because there's never going to be a law telling me what I can wear, right? Like, I like to use the saggy pants laws, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. Especially here in Florida, because it's a great one to use in Florida because every beach town has passed saggy pants laws, right? Because of indecency, right? That's the excuse. But in those same towns, as long as I wear a t-shirt and flip-flops, I can go in any convenience store wearing a Speedo, right? And that's not considered indecent. That's not an image I want to see. I don't need that.
I'd rather see the saggy than the Speedos.
Exactly. But perfectly legal in the state of Florida in those same towns that have the saggy pants laws.
And that goes the same thing with the and that's why COVID, man, it's so weird because, man, at the end of the day, they'll never let us be wearing masks over our face. Now, now you wear a mask. I'm like, boy, we'd have got killed for that years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you'd have gone into a grocery store or a bank wearing a mask over your face,
oh, you'd have got popped instantly.
Man, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm just like. It's just crazy.
Yeah. But even let's just say it didn't go that far. Like they'd be throwing your ass on the ground though, right? Like to find out they would think you're up to something.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but then it got loosened up, and now it's mask and. Yeah, these kids, they love wearing them. I forgot what them things called over their face.
Oh, those gaiters?
Yeah, whatever they call. Yeah. I don't like them though, because I what's going on.
I'm saying.
But yeah, man. Yeah, I definitely need to pick Ben's brain apart, man. He got some knowledge over there.
Oh yeah.
You can get hold of me anytime. Brett can give you my number.
Sure. And I'll come down to Florida State whenever you need me to come on down. I just give me time and what's the name, and I get on down there. Yeah. So that's what I do. I do travel and speak at universities, just my impact. Because I tell people, like, I'm not from a book. I'm actually speaking on real lived experience, like prison to life to stuff like that. So, and a lot of people can relate because I know the bad side. Because when I speak in a place, I always tell the principals and them, I said, you got to let me be me. You can't let me be the now me. Because especially with our kids, I got to meet them where they're at. So I might got to go in there and say, hey, sit your ass down and shut up. But just like now, I'm about to go speak at a school in a couple of days. They like, is he coming back? Is he coming back? Because I relate to them, and these kids nowadays, they know when somebody don't know shit.
Yep. They certainly do.
Well, good luck with Ben, because he's been telling me that I could go too, but he ain't ever invited me. This guy right here.
Come anytime you want.
I'll get us,
You're too busy taking baths with toasters.
Hey, once we figure out a debt, Brett, I'll get us the flights there.
Hell yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, because I got some to use too. So yeah, whenever he gets some dates, whatever he lets us know when to come, we'll be there.
Awesome. I got to start writing my schedule for the spring so we can figure something out.
Okay. Yep.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Lock me in. I'll be there. Yes, sir.
Buy y'all lunch and shit. We sit and have some drinks or something and kick back and kind of talk. Yeah. Kind of segueing back into the FUDGE Foundation because we kind of went off on a tangent there a little bit. But that was I thought
it's an educational tangent though.
Yeah, and that was an interesting one too.
And a lot of other things that the FUDGE Foundation do is I do a lot of community appreciation days which I created, where I go into underserved communities that don't look like other communities that feel left out, and I bring circus, food, entertainment, fresh gardens, fresh vegetables. Man, I just let them know that they're appreciative and that they're not forgotten about, because just because their situation looks different than ours, I need to let them know that somebody still does care. So I do them every year, and I go around the state of Ohio, and I just pop up and give them a great day. I also do the August 4th anniversary, which this year was our 5th year, and our memorial went up downtown. It was called the Seed of Life, which 9 C's, and they prosper to life with the West name. I'll send some pictures of that. What else I do? I also mentor kids. I run a youth summer program, 7 weeks on social emotional learning in the morning, and then I take them all around the state, because what I tell people is sometimes with the youth that I work with, sometimes the program don't change their life. It's a door stepper for them to come in the door. A lot of these kids was like me, that was raised in a single family household without a father. So just fostering that sustainability and letting them know that I'm present, like when they got a little graduation where it might not be big to them, but I'm going to show up. But I take them to like top-notch restaurants, let them know like life is bigger than what you're seeing in your community, because I'm all about trying to change community violence as well, because that's something I see every day, because I'm a product of that environment myself. So, letting them see that there is things outside of the area that they walk out of, but I always say that you can't reach that if you continue doing negative things. I got one of my kids, I send that video, he's 14. He lost a lot of his younger friends, his friends, about 12 or 13 in gun violence last year. But only way that he releases himself is through music. So I said, hey, if you write a song that I approve of about gun violence, I'll professionally record it and do a video for you. And I did that for him. Now he wants to buy me $1 million home, but you see how I put the aspirations in him though. Mm-hmm. So he wants to do videos, and I say, yeah, we can do videos, all that. But if you get in trouble at school, I don't reward negativity. So any negative thing, we won't move forward. So, I just tell people, man, just be present, be intentional, because a lot of these kids that I work with, they're raised by single parents. So they don't have the structure like we had. Our grandmas to whoop our ass. Shit, grandmas are tired. Well, the real grandmas are tired nowadays, and the new grandmas are still in high school. So, they're still kids. So, they want to still hang out and party. So, man, just being present and just being at their every little accomplishment and letting them know, like, somebody's here. So I do that, man. Advocate. I do mental health. I write curriculum. I got a curriculum on trauma, grief, and recovery that's certified through the NSAW. Speak in schools. Shit, I know I do some other stuff. I got to think. This is a lot. I do a lot.
You got me there. My grandmother passed away 13 years ago, and I'm still scared of her ass. So when you said our grandmas would put us in her place, I'm still scared of my grandma.
Yeah, my grandma made me go pick that switch out. I come back in with
the biggest, I remember that.
I go get the biggest one. She's like, and then she go get the other one, the one that you hear that. I try to get the biggest one. So even though it's gonna hurt, but that whip one, that shit hurts. I used to hate it. I used to break all them twigs off that tree.
My grandma's favorite was the chancla.
The chancla.
You ever had it? Yeah, the sandal. You ever had the chancla thrown at your head?
Yeah, man. So the grandmas. So man, just trying to help our youth, man. It's just a lot of them that are they ain't even enjoying life. They don't even know what life is about yet. Yeah. So I keep telling them, give yourself a chance. See what the world has to offer, but you have to be willing to give to walk into it. Like I said, when I was growing up, I had to survive on my own. So I was really making money. I wasn't trying to, all this killing and stuff. It's just, I don't know where it's leading to nowadays, but I'm like, it's I don't know, man. I just be talking to my kids and they just be bothering me, because at the end of the day, they're really babies. You get them alone, they get to crying. But I always tell them, I said, when you commit a crime like that, and I'm speaking from experience, you can't look, when you're in that courtroom, you can't look back and say, Mama, help me now. Only that judge and that person to the left got your life in their hand. So, My goal is to get them to think for 1 second before they react.
Yeah.
Because they don't think, they just react. So I'm trying to give them time to think, and I always let them know, like, if you're in the car and the person got beef going on, 9 times out of 10, the two people that's beefing don't die. It's always that person that has nothing to do with it.
Yep.
So be mindful, and if a situation ain't right, hey, make up a lie, get out of it any way you got to, but give yourself a chance. And that's what I just push on my kids, man, because I want to see them do better, be better.
Right. Where are the next few stops that you're hitting?
So I know next week I'm speaking at the New Jersey State Bar with some prosecutors, mental health, lawyers on victims' rights and stuff like that. And, as I'm a big advocate to make sure people that are getting the support and the resources they need. Right now, I'm really been resting out, man. I just ran an election in November, so I'm really just resting. So I just wanted to take some time till January, because that election was a very, very draining election. But I'll be back in 2026.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick too.
Yeah.
Like, how do we think gun laws and things are going to change with the re-election of Trump?
I mean, to be honest, they're not going to change for the best. I mean, if anything, we're about to have to go back over what we have already fixed.
Well, and you can see, like, in Agenda 47 and everything, he wants to implement stop and frisk, and we know who stop and frisks violates the most. It's not Ben.
Right.
Which when we look at New York, right, like, it was like 80% of the white people they stopped had contraband, and less than like 7% of the Black and Hispanic people they stopped had contraband, yet they overwhelmingly only stopped Black and brown people.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was people like me that always had shit on them they weren't supposed to have, whether it was drugs or weapons or whatever.
They the biggest gang in America. They're the biggest gang in America. Yeah, all we can do is right now is just get ready for 2025 and see how we're gonna fight this fight. There's a lot of things.
And so you're running again in 26, right?
Yeah.
And that was a close race.
Yes,
with
sir.
Somebody who had been in there for, what'd you say, 12 years, 13 years, something like that?
8
years.
Yeah, he's 8 as a state rep, but he's been the Montgomery County sheriff for 30 years that ran the jail.
So he already had the backing, right? And then he's already been in that position for 8 years, and it was a close race.
Right. Yeah.
Closer than he wanted.
Right, I believe that. Yeah, it took in this district, my district, usually the turnout is 53,000. So, with my team, it was either 26 was solidified, 26, 27, and I ended the race with 22,200 first time, and he ran his campaign every bit up probably about 250,000. I ran my campaign about $19,000. So,
being that close, no backing really, and everything like that.
Right.
I mean, that's huge.
And I'm in a very gerrymandered. I'm in the top gerrymandered district here in the state of Ohio. So when Trump comes here, that's where he's at. He's in my district. So my district was all, you know what I mean? So, but hey, I started and finished it.
Well, and like I said, those are great numbers for your first time running against somebody who has been there and established and everything like that. I mean, those are, unfortunately you didn't get the win, but it is so close that he's shitting himself. And that come next time around, he really going to be terrified.
Hey, but as I tell everybody, I did win.
Yeah.
I did win, if you'd asked me this 5 years ago, man, this shit wasn't on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
From where I've been at to where I'm at now, he bring up my past, but I always would say, I apologize for what my past had to go through. You didn't have to experience what I had to experience, but it's funny that I'm sitting beside you and my name's beside you on the ballot. So, you know, the past that doesn't have nothing to do with it now. But I'm
well, and you're
relatable.
open and upfront about it, and you've used that to change minds and change hearts and everything. You did when you won. What was it? 22,000.
Right. But
You
at the
won
end of the
22,000, man.
But at the end of the day, I don't care if you're a gazillionaire, a billionaire, broke, man, somebody in your family has been in prison, somebody's on drugs. You show me the right family, and I don't know what I do, but I don't think you can show me that.
No,
You know what I
no,
mean? So
not at all.
I'm real, I'm relatable. I know both sides. So
Yes.
not only do I bring one perspective, I also look at both, but also I can speak for both sides as well to have common grounds. Because at the end of the day, you know, it's all about bipartisanship. You know, people got to put those egos to the side and start working for what you're being paid for, the people. You know,
Yep.
but once they start getting money in their pocket, it's not about the people no more. It's about who can, I need to keep these handshakes so I can make sure I get the funding for my next election, so I have enough money for my campaign. At the end of the day, like I told them, I ain't here to be no career politician. I'm just here to hold people accountable and quit letting people run unopposed.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to inspire young Black men or women or young white men or women. If you've been down a path, but you're doing right in your community, hey, look at me. Get out there, because we gotta entice our younger generation to start running for these positions. There's too many dinosaurs that are running our world, and they're stuck in their ways. And that's why we're so slow evolving, because they're stuck in their ways. We need young, fresh minds to be there with bring a new
Gen X is
perspective.
just as bad as the boomers, right? Like, I don't know if you looked at the breakdown of voters, but overwhelmingly Gen X voted at higher rates for Donald Trump than the boomers did.
What is mine? I don't never know what mine is. I'm 82.
You are you are what I consider myself a Zennial, right? We're in the middle of that millennial and that Gen X period.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like we didn't have computers our entire school career, but we had them.
Not at all. We had the big ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Them apples and that Oregon Trail.
Yeah, F and Oregon Trail. But I remember when we got Doom, like on the library computers. I remember that. I was like a senior in high school or something. But yeah, like we're on that cusp between Gen X and millennial, right? But the Gen Xers, right? Like the people who are just a couple of years older than us, overwhelmingly, I think it was like 60% of them voted for Donald Trump.
And what I learned from my race is, like, a lot of people was just voting presidential, and I'm like, hey, y'all need to vote y'all local, because these are the things that y'all going to see, y'all local and state, because these are the changes y'all going to see tomorrow.
Yeah, there is a great song. It's called "My Vote Don't Count." I'll text it to you. It's by Yellow Pain, and
he's from here.
Dude breaks it down, dude.
Yellow Pain. Yellow Pain's from he's from my community.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Yeah, he has a song called "My Vote Don't Count," and I try to show people that all the time because I mean, just breaks it down, like the judicial, the executive, and everything.
Yellow Pain. Yeah, he's from the Soda Bath.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll text you that one, because that one I think would.
I know. I know. I know you're talking about. I didn't know that's the song, but once you said the name, yep, I know Yellow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's a great song that I think could help influence a lot of this younger generation too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, man, we gotta encourage our young people too, because as I said, that I seen it in here where, oh, Dion, you should run. As soon as you run, everybody turns to go to crickets.
Yeah.
So
we are winding down on time, running out of time. So Dion, real quick before you take 2 or 3 minutes to give some final thoughts, but real quick, if people want to support the FUDGE Foundation, how are some ways they could do it?
I mean, you can go to my website at www.fudgefoundation.org just to keep up with things. You can sign up with my newsletter. There's a donate button. There's just to keep up on things that I got going on, or you can go to my social media, Dion Green or the FUDGE Foundation. That's on all platforms as well. And yeah, and if you need me, I always say reach out. I'm always going to respond back if I can help, to be a resource. If I don't know it, trust me, I know somebody else that knows it. That's a good thing about connecting and building those connections. Networking is key. So, yeah.
How I get one of them shirts.
I guess when we fly to Florida State, I'll bring it to you.
All right, I'll bring you one of mine too.
All right, yes, sir. So we coming. We coming.
The flag, sir, Brett.
I'm gonna be on you. We coming.
Oh, let's go. I'm ready.
Make sure you bring me one too, Dion.
All
right, Brett, you want to throw in some final thoughts, and then I'll wrap her up.
My final thoughts for this week is just, honestly, it has to do with mental health, because the holidays have been upon us. It's an extremely hard time, as me and Dion spoke about earlier, especially if you've lost someone, and that Thanksgiving, there's that empty plate. We have to take care of our mental health, especially as men. We have to deconstruct the stigmatism of it. We have to do better. We have to be better influence for the youth. We have to tell these young men, like, look, it's okay to cry. I'll cry with you. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make you lesser. It makes you more emotionally mature. And, the crime rates will go down, part of it. So just, take care of your mental health. If you need help, call someone. I mean, hell, I'll text Ben randomly and be like, yo, man, feel like taking a toaster bath right now, and you have to be able to, and you have to be able to express your emotions maturely and everything. I see it too often where men are afraid to tell other men that they love them. Every time I get off the phone with Dion, every time I get off the phone with Ben, I say, I love you. You know what I'm saying? Because I do. And so just protect your mental health. You need help. Call somebody. This world is better with you in it.
Yeah. And so I'll give mine, and then we'll wrap up. I want to just, first thank Dion for taking the time. I can't imagine what both of you experienced, right? We talk about this all the time. I talk about how I shouldn't know either of you, right? I only know you both because of what you lived through. Like, I shouldn't know you, right? And, to go back to the mental health thing, right? Like, we do need to normalize these conversations. We need to normalize getting help. We need to normalize that men actually have more than one emotion, right? Like, because I can express anger, nobody will bat a fucking eye. They'll be just like, oh yeah, it's just a white dude, right? I can go, the only other emotion that I'm allowed to express is lust. I can say anything, make any kind of lustful comment. That's considered normal. But God forbid I'm sad. Right? People start making excuses. Oh, his mom died, or his dog got hit by a car. They'll make any kind of excuse in the world to justify why I'm sad, right? Or like our dads, Dion mentioned at the very beginning, his dad was mean. I mean, I understand that, right? Like the suck it up, buttercup, walk it off kind of mentality. And we need to stop that bullshit. And that's where I'm going to land the plane. So for all of you listening tonight, thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we'll be back with another story from the cold, dead hands. Maybe one day we will run out of stories to tell. But until then, signing off.
This has been Stories from the Cold, Dead Hands with Dr. Benjamin Dowd-Arrow and Brett Cross. Hopefully one day we will not have any stories to tell. But until that day arrives, remember to love one another and be kind to each other. Until next week, signing off.